of yourselves as well tonight. And so with that, I want to introduce you to Sheena. This is a woman who has gotten to know herself a lot better as well. She also has the claim to fame of organizing her wedding in 70 and executing her wedding in 72 hours, which is kind of awesome, right? All right, let's bring up Sheena.
Thank you so much. I thought there was going to be about 50 people today, and there's more than double that. So I'm so excited to be here, but I'm equally terrified because I get to share my story with you. And this story is not a story that I've actually shared in such detail with many people, let alone a room full of strangers. It's nice to meet you all. So my name is Sheena Brady. I'm the owner of Tease Tea, and I also work here at Shopify. And I'll get into that, how that all ties in together. But this is me 10 years ago, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. I graduated Algonquin College in hotel restaurant management. It was my dream to open a restaurant. That was what I thought was going to be my forever career. And when I graduated, I accepted a visa sponsorship in New York City, and I worked my way up the ranks at an early age through service, and then through serving, bartending, and then eventually to leadership. And at one point, I actually accepted a position where I got to be a assistant general manager of a 200-seat restaurant on the Upper West Side in New York City. And so we're going to dive right into fuck up number one. So mistake number one is putting trust in a pantsuit over people, including myself, and let me explain. I was 23, I think, when I was managing that place, and I didn't have a ton of experience outside of the educational aspect and serving in the industry and bartending, but not a lot of actual leadership experience. So I thought, fuck it, I'm going to fake it till I make it, and I'm going to look like a total girl boss and just kill it. So I invested in a couple designer suits, and I tried to walk the walk and talk the talk kind of thing. And, oh, that's me. Moving on to the next slide. So this is basically how I looked like almost every single day for like 8 years, basically, in that world. And I look maybe friendly, but I wasn't. I wasn't very friendly. I wasn't approachable. Maybe to the guests on the surface, I knew how to put it on. But I really, really struggled with relationships. I struggled with relationships with my direct reports. I struggled with relationships with my peers. I struggled with family relationships, and I'll kind of get into that in a little bit. But essentially, all I cared about were the people who were signing my paychecks, right? I wanted to please them and impress them. So I got this, list of standards for the employees, and it was my job to make sure the employees simply did it, right? Or else. So I wasn't super friendly, and that kind of led into mistake number two. And I also want to backtrack a little bit. I also felt like I had to have this crazy persona, right? Because I was young, I was female in a male-dominated industry when it comes to leadership. Almost everybody that reported to me was older than me. A lot of them had kids of their own and marriage and stuff like that. And I didn't really relate to that. But I also didn't try either, okay? So I just kind of kept on with this little persona, and I chose business over people and business over myself. So when I talk about restaurant standards, one place I worked, you had to have that from the time you took the order of the drink for a guest, it had to be at their table within 7 minutes, right? So the drink had to be made and to the table in 7 minutes. And so here I am enforcing these standards. And if that didn't happen, I would literally take the server and the bartender aside and be like, guys, you screwed up. It got there in 8.5 minutes instead of 7. This is a degradation of service. This is unacceptable. You know your job. You know the standards. Just do it, right? I was this guy. But instead, really what I should have done is maybe peel back the layers a little bit and be like, why did that drink take 8.5 minutes to get to the table, right? Maybe there's an issue with the ice machine. Maybe the bartender needed to run downstairs to grab another ingredient. Maybe we were understaffed. Maybe that was my fuck up. Maybe I didn't schedule enough people that day. I didn't ask those questions. I just expected the results. I chose business over myself as well. Anybody here work in restaurants before? A lot of people, right? So when it's your full-time actual career, and I know people even work part-time, you're working 40 hours a week when you work part-time in restaurants. When you work full-time, it's like 60 hours a week, and it's sacrificing nights and weekends and holidays to serve strangers, basically, right? So I compromised my relationships with family. Didn't have a lot of solid friendships around that time. I burned out quite a bit, but I just, didn't really take care of my health, didn't take care of myself at all, and just kind of kept trucking through it all. So I'm not anti-Hillary or anything, I'll just say that, not at all. But I really thought that this is what people thought about me behind my back. And to be honest with you, I really wouldn't blame them. Sure, I thought I had this, persona of a girl boss, right, who was just, killing it in New York City in her early 20s and, leading these teams. And by the way, the owners were really happy. Somehow I was delivering exceptional results by riding my teams like crazy. And so for me, that was, such gratification, and I kept getting, raises and promotions and et cetera. So in my world, I wasn't doing anything wrong, right? These were all little mistakes at the time that just didn't really add up to anything to be that concerned about. So people probably thought this was behind my back, and I didn't really care. I didn't, because I was still getting the jobs that I wanted and the promotions that I wanted, and giving the owners the results that they expected. So I remember at one point, just how because I kind of cringe thinking about how how much lack of empathy I had, lack of interest in the people around me. I remember working with this hostess who was pregnant, and she was probably about 4 months pregnant, and she had to go to the bathroom every half an hour. And I was like, man, this is so frustrating. And I was thinking this to myself. Thank God I didn't say it out loud. But I was thinking to myself, I'm like, girl, why are you going to the bathroom so much? You're compromising our standards. This is crazy, right? And I'm thinking to myself, she just doesn't care about the job probably, right? And really and I stand here now and I cringe thinking about that, because I'm actually almost 5 months pregnant, right now. And I really fucking have to pee, okay? I have to pee all the time. And I didn't lack empathy at that time because I wasn't pregnant or I didn't have kids or whatever. I lacked empathy because I didn't try to understand. I didn't ask, what's it like being pregnant? How does it feel? What are your challenges day to day being pregnant versus not being pregnant? What can I do as your leader to better help you continue to be successful in this job while you're creating a human life inside you? These things never dawned on me, right? So I ended up working in these incredible cities. I worked in New York City, which led me to San Francisco, and then back here in Toronto. And I was part of a founding hotel team that opened up a few years back. And again, I got this list of standards and just kind of implemented them. I put in this beautiful tea program featuring, 75 different teas from around the world. That's where I got excited about tea out of nowhere. And I became a certified tea sommelier, and I started hustling tea on the side, selling $50 a week in tea, nothing crazy. But I was really, really excited about tea, and I was like, man, I'm actually not even remotely excited about, grinding away in hotels and restaurants and riding people away. I'm excited about tea, so that was kind of interesting. But I didn't think much of it. And then one day, again, these employee challenges just continued to follow. I was a really shitty girlfriend as well. Somehow someone wanted to date me for 3.5 years off and on, and I just gave them the runaround like you wouldn't believe. It was a very bad relationship. And it takes two. I take a lot of that responsibility for sure. I was just not a very good girlfriend, let alone boss and, daughter or anything else at that time. So, long story short, during this hotel, again, I'm still performing well. I'm still getting great performance reviews, that sort of thing. And then somebody goes to HR and files a complaint about me. And they called me a bully. And HR calls me into their office, and they're like, somebody's filed a complaint about you. think you're a bully. And that really hurt because I'd been bullied a little bit growing up, and anybody who's gone through that, it's obviously not something you'd ever want anybody to go through. But I couldn't figure out why this person thought that of me. Like, all I'm trying to do is ensure that this person's doing their job. Like, I'm not personally trying to attack them. And so then I got defensive. I'm like, well, why is this person just taking it personally? They know what their job is, right? And so then I went on vacation shortly after, and then I came back, and then that happened. That was mistake number 3. I believe that successful metrics were enough for long-term success. Massive mistake. Just because you have successful metrics and data to back up your performance in whatever you do does not mean you're going to be successful. HR never told me the reason why I was let go. They didn't have to. But I knew deep down. It was finally these really shitty relationships caught up with me. And doing what I got paid to do and show up to do and do it really well, that wasn't enough. So, anybody watch Homeland? This is how I felt after. These are my different stages of, I call grief, I guess. Carrie is like a hot mess 95% of the show. This is me. So, cool, calm, collected, but abrasive, unapproachable, Sheena turned into this. It was like 10 years of suppressed feelings just like turned into a volcano and erupted into this. I hit rock bottom. It was really hard for me to recover. I don't talk about this time a lot to anybody. It was a huge blow to the ego. It felt betraying because this is my forever career, right? This was I was supposed to own a restaurant. I gave blood, sweat, and tears and my whole life into an industry that made me feel so disposable in an instant. It was devastating. So I need to pick myself up off the ground, and I zombied my way through another restaurant job shortly after that, temporarily, to figure out what I was going to do next. And they say insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, right? So I knew I needed to do something different. And at the same time, I started dating somebody else who I was absolutely crazy about, who lived in Ottawa while I was still here in Toronto. And I was still building this tea company on the side, which I was also crazy about. I'm like, maybe there's something to this. So the guy I dated ended up seducing me to go to Ottawa, my hometown anyway. And he's now my husband and my baby daddy, so fortunately that worked out. And I just left that all behind. I left, the industry that I worked in behind and moved to Ottawa. And it was great because that's where my family is anyway. And I was like, this is an opportunity to rebuild relationships with my family and to make a meaningful relationship with my significant other and really give it everything a fair chance. And also build my business. So this is me like semi-today in the last couple of years, I guess. And I needed a job to bankroll my business, but I didn't want to go back to restaurants. First of all, I was really scared. And second of all, I just probably couldn't, have enough time to do both because it's such a demanding industry. I had no transferable skills. This was my education. This was everything, right? What was I supposed to do next? So I ended up getting a job at Shopify because that was actually the only transferable skill I had. I built my store using Shopify. So I became a guru. So if you've ever had an issue with your website and you pick up the phone because something's broken, it's probably me on the other end trying to walk you through it. So that's what I did, and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to make enough money. Shopify's going to bankroll my business, and then I'm going to leave. That's it. 3 years later, I'm still at Shopify, and my business is growing like crazy, and I've fallen in love with this company like crazy for many reasons. First of all, the leadership. The top-down leadership here is incredibly inspiring. I watch leaders who just genuinely care about what their teams do, care about their best interests, are not afraid to open up to them and be vulnerable, all while still being confident and making great decisions. And so I learned from that, and I soaked it up, and I sought mentorship in that, and I sought guidance in that, and I eventually became a lead myself. So I'm a lead to this day, currently today at Shopify. And my spouse works full-time for my company, which is great. So that's how you know he's the one, ladies. So he works full-time for my company, and I have to dive into this last part really quick, my last fuck up, because I still fuck up today. So I needed to hire another employee for my company. This is not related to Shopify. And I hired somebody because it was convenient, and they sort of knew the brand, and it was full-time, and they were willing to work remotely. And right from the get-go, I kid you not, within 3 days, I knew this person was not a right fit. I had that gut feeling. I'm like, oh my God, I made a terrible decision with this hire. But I let my insecurities and my fears of what happened to me in the past with getting fired and the lack of relationships and people, not really trusting me dictate how I would act entirely when it came to employee challenges. There's like a serious grammatical issue in that slide, so there's another fuck up for you. But anyway, so I got PTSD with this employee because I thought, I want this person to succeed. I want them to do well. And I invested so much time, money, resources. I flew this person into Ottawa to spend 10 days to hang out with me so we could get on the same page. And their performance was still even worse in person than it was remotely, if you can believe that. If there's any time to impress your boss, it's like literally when they're flying you into the city. And so my last lesson in all of that is, when you start to make hiring decisions, hire slow, right, and fire quick. That's really, really important. I think Shopify does that really well. Their hiring process is very slow, but it works for them. You want someone who's the right fit culturally, who has a sincere interest, and who's very authentic and engaged in what your company's mission is all about. And that's pretty much it. I mean, being, it's all about balance, right? Like, it's okay to be human, and I learned that the more that I opened up with the people around me, the more that they opened up and trusted me. And I think that that's probably the most important thing, that vulnerability is really a virtue.
Great. Thank you, Sheena. I was actually just forgetting. I was like, oh, right. I have to come back up here because I was just immersed in that. So take that in. Think about your questions.